This week in the Real Review, we're tasting sparkling wines and champagnes with the festive season coming on. And today I'm looking at two vintage champagnes. In other words, they're both made from the grapes of a single vintage, a single harvest, a single year. This is generally the more prestige, the higher quality style of champagne. Not always, but usually high quality and higher price than a non-vintage blend. The first one I'm tasting is Ayala. And this is Le Blanc de Blanc. If you're an Aussie, it's Blanc de Blanc. If you're a Frenchman, it's probably Blanc de Blanc. It's a vintage wine from 2014. And Blanc de Blanc means, of course, that it's 100% white grapes. In this case, it's 100% Chardonnay. The next one we're tasting is Pommery. Pommery and Grenache, but better known as Pommery, just Pommery. And this is their Grand Cru Royal 2008 vintage. So a pretty special wine, $150 wine. Pommery, of course, one of the great names of Champagne with its vast cellars in the city of Reims, underneath the city of Reims. I'm Hugh and Hook, and you're watching The Real Review. This is Ayala, which is 2014 vintage, Le Blanc de Blanc, they call it. Not just Blanc de Blanc, but Le Blanc de Blanc. In other words, the Blanc de Blanc. And this is a vintage wine, of course, 2014, drinking beautifully now. And the nose is wonderful. It's got a marvellous array of herbal aromas. There's thyme, there's oregano, there's parsley, there's all of those things, but there's dried aromas, dried herb aromas too. There's citrus fruit aromas, lemon particularly is a strong feature of Chardonnay wines. And overlying it all is a little bit of toastiness. Let's have a taste. Gosh, that's delicious. All of those aromas that I described are present there on the palate as well. Particularly the lemony spectrum, but also the iced pastry thing. If you walked into a patisserie, a pastry shop, and you smell not only the baked goods, but the icing and all of those things that they, the creams that they put in them, all of those aromas you get in a patisserie, they're present in a wine like that. I really like the dryness and the crispness of the palate there. It's got line and length and vivacity. It's got marvellous vibrancy to it. What sort of food would we have with this? Well, as I already mentioned, seafood and fish of various kinds would all go terrifically well with this, but what I've chosen is a carpaccio of kingfish and radish, which has a little bit of tomato with it, a bit of olive oil with it, some herbs. The wine we're going to taste today is Pommery Grand Cru Brut Royal 2008. So it's a single vintage wine, 2008, a great vintage, by the way. Very active bubbles. And the nose is really complex. It's got toasty bread, brioche, pastry kinds of aromas to it. But there's also the herbal things there. There's a touch of freshly chopped parsley. There's some lemongrass. There are those sorts of aromas. A bit of thyme even, perhaps. Let's have a taste. And that is a wine that really fills the mouth with flavour. That's terrific. Yes, intensity of flavour, but also softness, liveliness from the acidity, and the bubbles, of course. And the length of palate. This is one thing that typifies Grand Cru wines, is that they have great length. In other words, the flavour has persistence. It doesn't disappear quickly. It goes on and on and on. And the longer that wine's flavour persists in the mouth, the more the drying aftertaste comes in. And the drying aftertaste is to do with the acidity. 08 was a high acid year. The wines are never deficient in acidity from 08. Very, very good wine. The dish that I'd recommend having with this wine is a Japanese dish. It's miso yakitori chicken. In other words, the chicken pieces are marinated in miso, they're threaded on a skewer and grilled. If you've enjoyed this, follow us and subscribe to The Real Review.